we just had the college football
Holy
game
smokes.
and weekend of the year so far.
Yeah.
I mean, not only
Yeah.
was the Ohio State-Oregon game absolutely crazy, and what we're going to get into right now, but that whole weekend was just fucking insane.
I mean, that was cinema.
Yeah,
that was
no,
pure
pretty good.
cinema.
The entire weekend was unbelievable. Week 8 slate for this upcoming week, by the way. We're talking about this in our Thursday college football episode. The games are supposed to be just as good, if not better.
Yeah.
So I'm real excited to talk about that. But what we're talking about right now is the Ohio State-Oregon game, the biggest profile game of the year so far. A game where, of course, I'm sure you guys have all seen by now, Oregon won 32-31 at home on the last second, where Will Howard slid as the time ran out. Ohio State ended the game with a timeout in the bank. So I know we all have probably a lot to say about this. We're going to talk about this, what this means for Oregon, what this means for Ohio State. Ryan, you are, of course, the Ohio State fan on the podcast, as well as Cameron and Kevin behind. So maybe pass along some of your thoughts to the viewers at home from what you're thinking from an Ohio State fan perspective.
I mean, first off, nothing new. Ryan Day losing to a top 10 school. It's been the same way ever since he became a coach. I think he's 1-8 or 1-9 against top 10 schools. It was a tough game. I think I was the opposite of everyone on the pod. I thought this game was going to be close. I
You
knew
were saying that. We all thought it was a blowout.
I like Oregon a lot. I think their team is very good. They just looked a little shaky. And even with that, the last couple weeks, they looked fine. They also have Dylan Gabriel, who very good quarterback, in my opinion, and good wide receivers. It was just the definition of the game for me was our defensive line not getting to Dylan Gabriel. I mean, the guy was never touched.
Too much time.
In college, and I don't care what cornerbacks you have, if you're facing a in my opinion, top 5 duo wide receiver, you're going to lose at most battles if it's one-on-one, especially with Dylan Gabriel throwing a deep ball, which he's amazing at.
Yeah.
And we didn't get to him once, and our cornerbacks, mostly Denzel Burke, got cooked because of it. I think Denzel Burke didn't have a good game, but I think it's hard not to get cooked if you were never touching the quarterback, like literally once the entire game. Wasn't one single play he was touched, and that's unbelievable considering we have 2 first-rounders in JT and Jack Sawyer. So it was a rough game, and I think, again, I just think there's a lot of things Ryan Day and Chip Kelly, I guess, could have done a little better. I think they got scared on offense. There was a lot of wide receiver screens in the game. Instead of, at the end of the game, all of a sudden we were going down the field with Emeka and Jeremiah Smith. We were doing a lot of wide receiver screens, and we weren't playing Trayvon Henderson, who had 8 yards per carry. He had 4 carries in the entire second half after having 8 yards per carry and literally single-handedly going down the field in one drive. Besides that, a little unfortunate fumble, bullshit happens. The onside kick that hits the guy happens. Pass interference, Jeremiah Smith isn't going to do it again. I don't think this game means that much. There's a lot to learn, which is great. It's always good. It was close. If it was a blowout or something, I'd be a little worried, but it was close. And last thing, Ryan, I know Will Howard, everyone's mad at Will Howard. If you're a coach, you just tell your guy, make the first read and throw the ball away.
Yeah.
I know for a fact Ryan Day didn't do that. Your offensive coach,
Him and Chip.
just bring him over and be like, hey,
real brain
which way?
power
It was
over there.
open, by the way. The guy was like 5 yards off the tight end or whoever was on the offense. Just if you miss him, throw it out of bounds. We have a 53-yarder. At least we have a chance to win the game. You know what I mean? Or there's 5 seconds left. We could run it out. I don't know. It was a lot. It was a lot.
I have a couple thoughts on the game, and then I'll pass it to you guys, and then we can talk about what this means as a bigger picture for these teams. But you pretty much said most of it already. The one thing that stood out to me was that both teams' stats were kind of identical. Both teams threw for over 325, and both teams rushed for over 140, and neither team really played any defense, both scoring over 30 points in the game. So these teams they stacked up pretty evenly. I think home field advantage definitely played a part in it. Obviously, when you look at the penalty side of things, where Ohio State had 8 penalties for 70 yards, Oregon only had 3 for 25. But I think the biggest thing that I don't really know if enough people are talking about, and this is kind of twofold, but it all boils down to that last drive. You guys ended the game with a timeout in the bank. The decision to save the timeout after the Jeremiah Smith offensive pass interference.
Yeah, it was 19 seconds. Just call
They
it
let
timeout.
no. They let 9 full seconds run off the clock
Yeah.
from the OPI to the snap of the next ball.
Yeah.
And then that's when they had the 12 men where they held for 4 seconds, and then there was 6 seconds left where he ran up the middle. But how in the world do you not call a timeout there? Like,
I've
you
been
let
trying to tell
half
you
of the
this.
game clock run out. It seems like Ryan Day. It's weird though because he's been in these games before. It was like the same thing with Georgia, where they do this great drive at the end of the game, then they get to a spot, and either it's like play calling that's bad, or there's a penalty, or they
Just
don't use a
coaching.
timeout.
Just
Well, no, it
terrible
is.
coaching.
So it's like he somehow just doesn't know how to finish in these games. And then also, like, this wasn't. I'm not getting on Will Howard for this, but I think this is a bigger question that we don't have to get into about starting transfer quarterbacks from non-real target schools. Will Howard's played 4 full seasons in college before. In his 4 seasons with Kansas State, they went 4-6, 8-5, 10-4, 9-4. Obviously, never made the playoffs. He's never played in a game like this before. Yeah. If you saw in that last drive, he was clearly he was nervous. He wasn't.
I mean, the first play, he got the snap.
He fell.
Tripped and fell.
He fell down. He wasn't making the reads.
I thought he was spotless after that.
Well, no, he threw the ball.
Absolutely perfect.
He threw the ball pretty well, but it shows in end game situations where you just have no idea. He freaked out. His first reads in the pocket isn't there with 10 seconds left or 6 seconds left. You have to throw the ball away.
No, he made one bad mistake in the entire game, in my opinion.
Well, I don't know. I'm just saying that's the thing with these players that are transfers from these schools. If you've never been in the spot before, I think it'll help him in the long run. When you guys get to the playoffs or whatever, that he'll have this game experience. But it is one play. It's one play that these games come down to.
Yeah.
So it's not like it doesn't matter what you do before that when you need 5 yards or just the clock to stop for a chance to win the game, and you just can't get that done. So that was the big thing that showed up to me. I was just like, hey, Will Howard's probably never felt this before. He's a 5th-year senior, but he's still never played in a game like this. So someone like a Dylan Gabriel is much more used to it, and that kind of I thought showed at the end.
Yeah, to be honest, there's not much about the game that hasn't already been said. I think another one of the glaring things that might be getting overlooked is that defensive line on Ohio State allowed 7 yards per rush from Oregon.
That's nuts.
Which is absolutely insane. Granted, Oregon is just a strong offense altogether, but they're much more known for their passing ability.
Oregon averaged 5 yards per carry, by the way. Just want to throw that out there.
So you probably didn't factor in Dylan Gabriel or something.
Yeah, maybe not. Maybe that's what it was.
I don't know.
But I think that's a glaring mistake in that game specifically. But overall for Ohio State, I am curious if maybe too much blame is being put on Ryan Day and not enough blame is being put on their defensive coordinator Jim Knowles. So before Jim Knowles, which was in 2021, Ryan Day was 1-2 versus top 5 teams. Obviously a losing record, but they bring on Jim Knowles, who's supposed to improve the team. Since then, they have gone 1-4. So obviously not better, kind of significantly worse. I think Ryan Day has actually done a somewhat decent job in the sense that
At what?
In the sense of building Ohio State to be an offensive powerhouse.
They were always that, though.
Well, they got the nickname wide receiver U.
He got a number 2 overall draft pick, a number 7 overall draft pick. He's had the greatest wide receivers in the history of, in my opinion, college football in the past 4 years in order.
So, I think, that's probably because he's continued on with some amount of success.
That ain't got nothing to do with Ryan Day.
He's 1-8 in big games. That's all I need to know. That's only on you.
He's 2-6 against AP top 5 teams. I have all the games.
I would love to see this other game he won.
Yeah.
It was Notre Dame. Notre Dame and Clemson was the 2 wins. Clemson was a playoff game. Notre Dame was regular season game in 2022. That was the last top 5 win he had.
Wait, he lost against Clemson, and he
won against I meant regular. It might be not in the playoffs.
Okay, yeah.
Because in the playoffs, that might be against top 10 teams. Clemson.
I'm talking against AP top 5 teams in Ryan Day's career. He's 2-6, including playoff games, obviously.
Yeah.
His only wins are against Clemson in the semis and then Notre Dame in the regular season,
which isn't real.
But yeah, Mario, I don't know if you wanted to jump in or anything, but I had a couple of thoughts on just Ryan Day in general because you brought it up. I have kind of an opposite take of Mike here.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, personally, you guys pretty much said everything you had to say about the game. There's not much I have to add. All I wanted to say was I just thought Ryan Day was outcoached by Dan Lanning, and I just think it's one thing if this happens every now and again, but like Ryan said, 1-8 or 2-6, something that just repeatedly happens. And it's not that you don't have the players. It's not that
they put up 32 or 34 every time they play, and it's the one play at the end of the game.
It's the same situation.
It's the same situation every time. And at a certain point, I would just say you have to fire Ryan Day. He came into a good situation that was built when he arrived. He's been getting top recruits, top players. And
I mean, he showed up a
just-
couple years after a national championship.
That's what I'm saying. And,
Well, it's
I've been saying
also-
this
I mean-
for
and ever
3
since
years.
and ever since
Yeah.
he's gotten there, like they've always been. I mean, preseason Ohio State's always ranked like within the top 3. They're always expected to do big things, and every time in big games, even like against teams that they should, in my opinion, were always better than, like Michigan.
Yeah.
They still find a way to lose, and it's just like at
Yeah.
a certain point, you have to get your team ready. There's certain things like you could be an okay like manager in that sense of a coach, but you have to get your team ready to go.
Yeah.
It's my biggest gripe with Brian Kelly. Certain coaches like Nick Saban, like his teams, whenever it was a big day, they're ready to go out. Even Kirby Smart, or
Yeah.
like other teams, like they might be outmatched going into it. They don't care. Like it's one game, you go into it with that mindset, and I don't know. This showed me just another Ryan Day collapse. I would say
Yeah.
it's time for him to
Not
go.
not to hammer on the Ryan Day thing, but
No, you can hammer it.
Well, no, just from a program standpoint, go ahead.
Well, no, I was just gonna say before you give a kind of piggyback, just to counter that, because we were actually talking about this earlier today, is that it's hard to put blame on a guy when you have at worst a 2-loss season. You're going into a playoffs pretty much every year. It's like, that's pretty much what 99% of schools are asking for. It's like,
But you're
You-
in the
you
1
can't-
percentile of schools. So
I mean,
you're
they've
not
also missed
Kansas
the
State.
playoffs 2 of the last 3 years. So
Yeah.
I don't know what that's
I mean,
all
he's
about.
been
Yeah, I don't know what
he's
that
been a
is.
coach since 2019. He's made a majority of the
I have
of playoffs.
so I have
and
his coaching record, but essentially I have a point that I was thinking earlier today, and I actually want to know what you think about this. I think Ryan Day is solely responsible from coaching Ohio State out of consideration for an elite programs right now. And when I say elite, I'm not talking talent, because every year they have a roster that's either the best or one of the best rosters in college football. But when you're talking results since he took over, 2019 won the Big Ten, lost to Clemson first round of the playoffs. 2020 won the Big Ten, beat Clemson first round, lost the Natty. That was his best season. 2021 lost to Michigan, missed Big Ten, not in the playoffs. 2022 lost 45-23 to Michigan, missed Big Ten championships, made playoffs as 4 seed, lost to Georgia in the first round. 2023 lost to Michigan, missed Big Ten championship, missed the playoffs. 2-6 all time against AP top 5 teams. Lost his last 4 ranked games against top 5 teams. Their last Natty win was in 2014. They've won just 1 playoff game and 0 championships since then. So in the last 10 years, I'm just like, they're in no world are they not always going to be ranked and in the conversation. But at what point do you keep letting this guy do this to the point where, like, is 1 playoff win in the last decade, is that consideration for like elite status? I don't really think so. I don't know what you're
I mean, I was getting laughed at actually. Probably was 3 years ago. These guys, I would scream at the TV at Ryan Day, and you guys weren't on that boat yet, in my opinion.
No, I was
No.
late to the party.
I was getting harassed because
No, Ryan saw the future.
I
Yeah,
I
he really
know,
did.
like I just see it. It's just so obvious because this talent. The one huge thing. Normally, the problem I'd get so mad is because it's one game, but that one game was everything for our season. Whether it was Michigan, a playoff game, whatever it is, you couldn't lose one game. Now he's gonna get fucking bailed out because our talent's so good. We play this game again, neutral site, probably in Big Ten championship or a playoff game, in my opinion, if we make the playoffs. I think we kill Oregon. I think it'll be a much different game, especially on the defensive side, which I think played better in the second half. But I think it'll be a much different game and we play much better. But now that it doesn't matter, I think he's going to get so lucky, and I think it's not going to be a big deal.
The one loss won't mean
I think
as
he
much.
beats Penn State. I think he beats Michigan. We play Oregon again. I think we beat him because he now, for the first time ever, has a second chance.
I think you beat him as well, but what gives you the confidence that he even has the ability to win those games?
So in my opinion, it's not him. What happened in this game, our players carried this. Our offense did phenomenal, I think. Going into one of the hardest places to play in the country and scoring 31, in my opinion, Will
Eugene
Howard
was rocking.
was perfect. Like, he literally, in my opinion, I couldn't ask for better for a transfer quarterback first time playing a big game.
He did what he needed.
He did absolutely
Yeah.
perfect, and all it was the end of the game, bad coaching, bad management. And at the end of the day, I think our players are so good that when this happens again, Ryan Day's opinion won't even mean shit. It won't matter. The flukes that happen probably won't happen again. And I think he's gonna
the
get.
onside.
I think he's gonna get so bailed out. It's gonna kill me as a fan because he's gonna coach now for the next 5-7 years.
What-
Long term, it doesn't
What-
help. But
would he have to do in the playoffs for you to like be happy with the
The,
result?
the only way is if we lose in championship to a game winning.
So you make the national championship.
Yes, national championship,
Okay.
and we lose
Because-
not in a blowout fashion. We come prepared and we lose because we played our
close
heart.
game.
The CJ Stroud Georgia game. We played our hearts out and we lost in the last second field goal, which he still choked, which I would fire him
Well,
for.
that's kind of
if
what I
it
was-
wasn't him. If it was like CJ Stroud fumbled the ball and
That
it
was
was like
yeah, that was my one point is that like it's almost not an accident or it's not, random when he loses at the end of the
Oh,
game.
no,
Like
no.
it seems like if you go to any big game they've played,
it's always
put the
him.
Michigan games aside. I know it's been rough against Michigan, but I'm just saying you go to any other ranked games, it's literally the same story where you'll be like the players were better if not just as good as the other team. It came down to 1 point or 2 points in the last seconds of the game where there was some sort of mistake made and we lost. And so because the players are good enough, we're going to give them another chance.
exactly
so I'm
what's
wondering
gonna happen.
so I'm wondering if, 12-team playoff, right? If you make the Big Ten, you get a bye, or win the Big Ten championship, you get a bye. Obviously, we'll have to see what happens against Penn State. If you lose to them, you'll be an at-large bid and have to play, the round of 12. But like a win or two, making the semis and losing just feels like a Ryan Day season, and then
gone.
they just keep giving him like a million more.
No, he's
That's-
gone. He's gone. Yeah, it's national championship or nothing. At Ohio State, what I've been on for so long, everyone's going
fair.
to be behind and everyone's going to ride, and I love it. I love it because that means he's going to put it all out and win a championship or nothing.
I feel like a lot of Ohio State fans are on that same.
Oh, I'm so
wavelength, too,
excited.
'cause
Everyone just opening their eyes.
I
to
was
this
reading.
bomb.
I was reading a lot today on it, and pretty much every Ohio State blog was just like, "Enough's enough."
Yeah.
Like if you like.
You have the most talented
this is
players
it,
in the
yeah.
country every year. The most first rounders are tied with Bama or Georgia every year, and we somehow never do anything. It's absurd. It's
Yeah.
actually absurd.
No, it's crazy. And then this win obviously looks amazing for Oregon, who
Yeah.
doesn't have to play Penn State.
Oh, they're locked. They're locked.
And they're pretty much. I saw they're the biggest favorite now to make the college football
Yep,
playoffs.
makes sense.
So they're pretty. It's minus 2,000.
'Cause
by
even
the
if
way,
they
you
lose
wanna
the Big
bet
Ten
that.
championship,
no, it doesn't matter.
doesn't
They can
matter.
pretty much do anything the rest of the season and make the college football playoffs.
Yeah,
So,
wow.
shout out to me preseason for betting that minus 300. I think it was. Fucking amazing.
Great value.
Yeah, Oregon's great.
Value. But yeah, it'll be interesting to watch what goes on in the Big Ten. I mean, Ohio State, Penn State right around the corner. That game becomes a little bit more interesting now.
Yeah.
That becomes pretty important.
Mhm.
And
It's
it's
a big
Must win.
in Penn State.
It's tough. No, that's a tough environment.
I wonder if they do
One
the
of the
whiteout
toughest.
game for a night game there. That'll be
I
be
would.
fun to watch.
Throw everything you have. Penn State wins this game, they pretty much make the Big Ten championship.
Yep.
I know.
Yeah.
And if
So-
Ohio State wins, they're in, and they get a
Yeah.
rematch with Oregon. So pretty much, you get
gonna
to
be a
choose
good
your own
game. It'll be
destiny
fun.
here. But yeah, there you have it. Ohio State, big week in the Big Ten, and we'll see how this shakes out this week.
Grind day.
Fire Ryan Day.
He's gone.
You're fired.
We'll see.